To this day, I honestly have no idea or explanation what, why, or how this happened, but I will never touch the game again. Ever. It haunted me for the longest time, and I will never go back. Those who have never played the game, I'll try to keep bringing the descriptions as brief as I can. The rest of you will have to fear nostalgic moments. If you ever owned a PC to play games on 10 years ago, you must be familiar with the game The Sims. However, if you've played the game enough, you'll know that it could get you in a little too creepy for your liking. For instance, whenever all your Sims are asleep, on random nights, a burglar would appear. When this happens, you could hear the very tense, creepy tone that gives you a tingling shiver throughout your body as he creepily walks towards your property. Of course, if you have done the Rosebud cheat, you'd have the burglar alarm installed in your house for sure, and it would go off as the burglar nonchalantly walks to the nearest door that he could find, as if they don't let you install the lock on these goddamn things. When the policewoman would arrive and arrest the dumbass, then you'll get a reward for apparently catching a wanted criminal, which is nice. The same creepy tone plays when your sim messes work and or gets fired from it. In an instance, whenever a fire occurs, a tone similar to the burglar music plays, except this possibly is 3 times creepier. Then the firemen arrive and your sims can help attempt to put the fire out. After the fires are out, the firemen just walk away, like nothing happened. Your sims act like nothing has happened or either, as if nobody was killed during the fire. If someone was killed, the Grim Reaper would arrive and do this sting over to the dead body. You could use your sim to beg him to bring the dead back one to life. If your sim is happy and mostly has green and needs bars, you can gamble against the Reaper and you'll most likely win, thus saving your dead sim's life. If the begging sim has mostly red, the Reaper will turn him down, and Tombstone will appear in the dead sim's place. Attempting to find the creepy music on YouTube would be helpful before reading this, if you're brave enough. Now that you have got the gist of it, here comes one of the most haunting moments I have ever had in a lifetime. I really wish I would never have happened to me. It was winter of 6th grade when I was staying up on a Friday night playing The Sims. It must have been around 10:30 p.m. I got bored with just playing my rich, happy family. I decided to go and spot my home to the miserable family that I created for some fun. It was a home of many tombstones scattered around random places, just based off the fact that The Sims had names of people and kids I didn't like back then. You could easily tell what I had been up to. I always liked to choose that spot to conserve memory. One even had a name Osama bin Laden, who I killed with a firework rocket. Ironic, right? So I'm going for The Sims, and all of them have red bars. So I decided to make these two guys fight and beat the crap out of each other. I made the one kid stay in an isolated room with only a bookshelf to see if he could actually read a book out of cabin fever, and just other sick things like that. However, there was something odd against this particular sim, who I suspiciously would torture to my liking. After a while, Sonny the tragic clown arrived at the house. He's basically a miserable clown that comes to your house if your sims were too miserable for an extended amount of time. He spends his time walking around trying to do tricks that fail miserably, crying, coughing like a guy who smokes 3 packs a day, and pissing off your sims. He just makes your life suck until you get rid of him. Now he would be the worst victim suffering under my wrath. Everyone who would always slap the shit out of him, insult him, and even had the other Sims torture him like there was no tomorrow. I just thought it was funny. For every time I was waiting for a Sim to complete a task, I would do something to make Sonny miserable. I even made someone call the Sim my actual name, let's call him John, to come over just so John could slap him too. Eventually every Sim, starting to hate Sonny so much that they would slap the crap out of him, insult him, and even just flat out attack him without any command. Now I thought it was pretty funny at the time. It got up to the point where I just loved seeing Sonny miserable. John was able to attack him. That's not all normal, because when I created this personality traits, I give him a full nice meter Sims with a high nice meter only have commands to which are courageous to people like hug, give gift, flirt, and compliment. Even so, I just brushed it off and not bothering to think of anything of it. Sonny became a symbol of everything I hated. At this point, my mom told me I should go to bed soon, and I should have listened to her. This is where all the mayhem began, starting with the worst mistake I've ever made. After a while, I got sick of messing with the clown and couldn't stand to hear him cry all the time. I did everything I could to try to make him leave, making the Sims slap him, insult him, tell him to leave. Nothing worked, so I figured it was a time to get down to business. I set up a firework inside the house, launched a rocket, and it would crash down and started a fire. The bone-chilling music started playing. I had the doors taken away and timed for how long I would take them to all die in a fiery death. One of the women were there first to go ahead and start screaming, flailing her arms helplessly. Then one of the guys who were caught in the spreading blaze. Eventually the Sims started cooking, and the fire reached Sonny, who also began flailing his arms and screaming. I felt a sense of an evil pass over me as I gave my computer screen a morbid gaze, along with a giddy, sadistic smile. The same smile you'd expect a kid to have when he's burning ants with a magnifying glass. But another feeling passed me, alongside the evil feeling. Something just wasn't quite right. I've watched the Sims burn before, and they all flail their arms in the same ridiculous way. This time it was very different. The Sims seemed to be screamed like no other way I've known before. Their cries weren't as if they were being funny, stepping on hot coal, but as if they were calling for help, begging for help, and begging and pleading like they knew I was there and I was the cause of all this madness. What really got to me was that they were screaming at a louder volume than I had my speakers at. They were turned down pretty low, as if I was quickly able to turn them down a little. I had a strange feeling from this and a slight bizz of fear, but I attempted to shake it off, and then my time of humor was short-lived. After apparently doing digging to help them, their cries invoked their pain, sorrow, and suffering. Looking around the fire, two of the Sims have already fell to the ground while the others were still flailing in vain. One or two of the Sims seemed to be looking straight at me, calling for help. I didn't think anything of it. I just thought they were facing me because that's how they were facing before they were caught in the blaze. But then, as I skimmed across the house, there was Sonny. He too was facing at me. He was different. Something wasn't right about him. He was flailing his arms like a maniac. He was screaming like the Joker, except much more sadistic and insane. The way he was shrieking and wailing kind of made me feel scared. Plus, it was cold and I shivered a little. He was facing directly at me, giving me that creepy clownish look. Only this wasn't just any type of clownish look. This type of look that Sonny was giving me was a glare of insanity in its purest form. I never knew if he was supposed to look like that, but if he did, it was as if he was staring into my soul past the screen. His morbid face was full-blown disbelief, anger, depression, rage, and heartfelt hate. His blank, beady clown eyes were facing perfectly on the line with me. Never have been such a powerful emotion from a video game character, let alone many at once. Hell, I've never even seen anyone like this in real life give me that type of stare. Then he just stood still, just like that, like he was standing and idle, although he did not shake the evil upon looking at his face, or the fact that he was being incarnated. It must have been a glitch, I thought. I hope it was just a glitch. Just then I heard the camera stutter a noise. It was the screenshot of the camera going off automatically. It usually showed that whenever something eventful happens while you're playing. So I clicked and saved on the photo album, checked to see what it was. It was a picture of Sonny inside the fire. The caption said something like, "Got that darned clown," which I thought it would be funny, but more eerie because of the situation I was in. There in the photo too, he was doing the exact same death stare. It filled me with such a grim, creepy feeling that I clicked out of it right away. I thought about it and clicked on the photo album again to delete the photo. The game froze for a bit. Then without warning, the clown photo sprung up again. It might have just been me, but the photo appeared to be slightly zoomed in. I clicked and deleted the button, but nothing happened. I got frustrated and clicked it again repeatedly, and then you could hear the clicking that gets slower for a second and stop. The game froze on me. At this point, I was quite freaked out. I was trembling. All I could feel were my pores bumping against my clothes as a chill ran down my spine. I ducked under the desk, reset the computer, and booted the game back up. I then remembered that I completely forgot to check the time after the Sims died. It was 11:30 p.m. Still having the willies, I decided to play the game again. But something was odd. There was no sound during the intro, and the colors seemed to have a weird tone to it. All the flamboyant colors seemed to combine into one and filter the screen. Every color was either purely red, white, blue, yellow, or green. It didn't just look normal. I felt like my mother was going to be bad, and the conga music just wasn't playing during the loading screen either. Just blank nothingness. When map appeared, I checked my speakers because there was still no sound. I turned them back up, but still nothing. For some reason, I decided to go visit what was left of the family that I had just slaughtered. When I got there was nothing left. Everything was burnt, and there were ashes everywhere. There were tombstones inside the mediocre building. I looked to where Sonny had died and found nothing. Nothing but a painting on the wall was there. It was a painting of him that you could buy from the store. I really regret taking that closer look at it now because what I saw looked like him in a much creepier state. It was depicting him in a dark shade. He looked as if he was staring down at someone. I decided to play my happy family to get it off my mind. I would go to the menu and click onto the back of the map. Now that I have no idea if that was just a glimpse of it, or it had been the whole time I wasn't looking. But for a quarter of a second, I felt like the face of the clown in the painting glanced right back up in my eye. Getting another one of those chills, I selected my happy family. The house that I constructed for them was especially designed to have every similar architecture to my actual house. If not exact, it was nighttime in the game. I even had one kid turn on the cartoons to make myself feel better. But there was when a strange part started. Another kid decided to interfere with the cartoons and put on the horror channel. I kept trying to switch it back to cartoons, but he would just change it to horror after 5 seconds. I just sent the kids to bed and had everyone go to sleep. Time sped up since nobody was doing anything. Suddenly a message popped up saying, 3 more days, and that fucking creepy ass burglar music blared out of my speakers. It took me so unexpectedly, and by surprise I jumped back in my seat, making a huge thump. I forgot how I had it out loud. The biggest shiver then turned to spasm, panic, and fright. Next to the message was Sonny's face, staring straight at me in the eyes. I was so frightened that I couldn't even move but stare at the 2 straight seconds. My heart must have skipped a beat, and it was beating faster than ever before. I took the mouse and clicked the crap out of OK button. Of course, just my luck. The game froze and I was left to suffer through Sonny's face staring at me. I was about to reset the computer when the message finally went away. Thank God I turned on the buy menu so I could hear some of that calming music. Except when I turned the volume down a lot, I couldn't hear it. It was glitching or something? Maybe the music wasn't working properly. Eventually I went about my business and usually doing everything tasks while still freaked out about the message. Then when I sent everyone to bed, the haunting message appeared again. The music didn't even play at first, so I thought it didn't go off, but it did. There was a delay just to screw with my head and throw me off. It didn't scare me as much as it did, but it still crept me out. Nothing was different, except this time, the message said, 2 more days. Freaked out, I got out my CD player and played some Green Day to cheer myself. All up to my coincidence, the batteries died in the middle of the song Holiday. That didn't really help at all. Still, I decided to push on to this day. I still don't know why I was deterred to pass on, but I did anyway. I went to sleep, quite restless, thinking of much. Maybe if I just let the game go for one night, it'll go away. My younger brother was also addicted to the game, so I decided to ask him if he knew anything about it. I even accused him of doing it just to mess with me. He then responded by ridiculing me, saying that I was just making it up to scare him. I believed him when he said that he didn't know about it. Besides, I was even kidding myself to think an elementary school kid would figure out how to do something like that, even before, especially not all well planned out. I also attempted to look it up online, but all I found was BS, nothing. Right next to the game which I was playing Saturday night this time, the same thing happened, except the message said, "One more day." The tense, spine-chilling music blared out my speakers. Again? How? I don't know. This time, I had the speakers almost all the way down, but the only thing that I could have made it more silent is if I was muted and unplugged the damn thing. I didn't even bother to go look at Sonny's face, but just from my peripheral vision, it seemed like his mouth was open in a very devilish way. The damn gag lagged again, and I looked out of the window until the message went away. It really didn't help that the game seemed to be getting ready by displaying a clown on TV, a random clown picture that I have no recollection of putting on my wall, and brush outside that looked like a twig. Trust me, you have to be there to see it, or else you would have no God forbidden idea. Is this really a sick joke? I was thinking, like, who could have done this? And why would they? I was only 12 years old. It's not like they could see my reaction and get any enjoyment out of it, so why do it? It's as even a joke? I proceeded to then go about my Sims' daily business when they woke up. I bought a bunch of new stuff for them, and I even touched up a few things. I also sold the clown painting for $1, replaced the TV. I had tried everything I could do to keep the clown out of my head, out of sight and out of mind. Things just looked up to me a little from there, right? At this point, it came the worst at the scariest time of my life. My heart would have been beating a Kenyan runner on steroids in a heartbeat race. No other moment that haunts me like this still to this day. All in sincerity, paranormal times. All like this was turning point in life. A message popped up while everyone was still awake. This time it wasn't a burglar music that played. It was the fire music. It shrieked out my speakers so loudly because I wasn't expecting it. It struck fear into me as if I got punctured by 1,000 needles. My spine tingled so much I was petrified. I might have hit rigor mortis, but there was the message. It had Sonny's face on it again, which it seemed to have a demonic smirk. And then I read the message. I could feel myself turning pale. My body felt like it was shutting down from the neck down to my whole body. My eyes widened without even control. Believe me, if you could ever feel your pupils dilate, this is what it would feel like. The message said, "There's nowhere to go. He's here." It really killed me to type that, let alone read it. I tried to click on build mode, but it wouldn't let me, as if the burglar came and didn't let you do anything. I got my sim and his wife to go somewhere inside the house where they could escape. Only once I got them in order, I realized something. The kids were playing tag outside. Oh no. Oh God, no. The next thing I know, one of the kids ran away into the backyard, while the other just stands and stares down while his back was turned to the sidewalk. I didn't want to watch, but I just couldn't look away. The clown slowly creeped down the sidewalk. The kid just stood there, like he had no idea what was going on. Then the clown walked until he was on the line with the kid, then turned. He walked towards the kid. I tried to get him to run away or something. Anything to get them the hell away from that goddamn clown. I must have clicked on the mouse 40 times per second. Nothing. Then the most horrific thing happened. As if the clown was a burglar, he bent down over to the kid, and the kid disappeared. Right when he disappeared, the burglar music shrieked. An image flashed on screen for a millisecond, but I couldn't make it out in time. Sonny was just then holding a sack what looked like a burglar. I couldn't believe my eyes. My jaw just fell upon involuntarily. I didn't even feel or notice it much because my body was so numb with the fear and panic. I watched in horror as he walked after the other kid who was running around to the house. To my surprise and awe, Sonny did the smart thing when he went back the way towards where the kid was running around the house. There was no hope. The kid ran right into him around the front left corner of the house. He too was scooped up into the sack along with the burglar, playing music. While the image flashed on the screen again, I couldn't make out, but I know for sure it wasn't something good or anything I'd like to see. The clown then proceeded to walk, but to run out of the crime scene, as if it wasn't creepy enough. Those Sims really were fast and jolty like motion. My other Sims just stood in the house, doing nothing until the clown from hell was gone from the scene. Then all of a sudden, my Sims darted out the door where the kids were taken and started screaming in horror. An expressive speech bubble that symbolized loud noise appeared above their heads. Nothing was in them. Now I've heard Sims scream before, but again, this was different. The screams were blood-curdling, despair-inducing, terror-striking, even realistic. My speakers weren't that old, but they definitely would have not produced that realistic audio quality. It seemed like a small person was actually trying inside the speaker, screaming at the top of their lungs. The Sims then began to sob and cry in their hands likewise, but it was very realistic sounding sobbing. I could literally put out the speakers under the desk, and you would think that there's somebody sitting under the desk crying like they're living in pure agony. The image from earlier flashed on once again, and I managed to press print screen just in time. God help me, as if my timing was just a teeny bit off then, I wouldn't have to see what I just scream capped. At this point, I was on the verge of tears. My vision was blurring, my lips were trembling, I was shaking violently, but I did not take my eyes off the terror. I was even whimpering like a scared baby. I lost it. I trembled off my chair. I went out to go play some music. I then listened to some tunes and let out the longest piss I've ever had in my entire life. And then when I got back to my CD player in hand, my original plan was to quit the hell out of the game. I was done with this crap. I didn't care if I had to play Jimmy Neutron versus Jimmy Negatron for the rest of my life. I just want the fucking game off the computer. I got back in just 15 minutes. I noticed that I hadn't paused the game. Touching my mouse caused me to scroll down just to see what was happening. There was only one sim left, and that sim was the only one with my name on it. The wife was nowhere to be found. None of the faces were available in the navigation bar except for the remaining sim. He was just standing in the house, staring blankly at nothing. The music played again. The clown from hell was back, coming to get the last of what he started. I wasn't in the mood for taking this shit anymore. Not like I was 3 hours ago. I had the sim call the police and walk out the back door to where he left. Not to mention I was muted the speakers for real this time. Sonny walked into the house, like non-enchanted like knew I was there. He crept around the living room, dining room, and the kitchen, and a bit of the family room. It was like he was looking for him. After searching around and finding nothing, for some odd reason he decides to touch the TV and broke it instantly. Then sat on the couch watching it like if there was something on. After for a moment or two, he stood abruptly. It was like he had all of a sudden fought. He proceeded to walk out the back door and got there the same way my sim did. I quickly commanded the sim to walk around the front and towards the back. Then the clown followed his tracks. Then came the worst part and the worst night of my life. Since the agriculture of the house was just like my actual house, the computer room upstairs in the back right corner, my sim was walking around the corner towards the back with the clown walking about with the same speed. But there's the scariest part. Once my sim reached the back left corner of the house, Sonny was beginning to reach the back there, right? I heard something outside. I didn't dare to push aside my curtains, but I listened. I just listened. The whole time Sonny was just walking around right back, I could hear footsteps silently crunch on the ground outside the window. It was like what seemed like the same spot too. When Sonny stopped to turn to the left, the footstep sounds outside stopped, and they too sounded like someone was walking around. and then continued on once Sonny started walking again. The footsteps outside slowly faded out. I couldn't do it. I went crazy and absolutely ballistic. I forced to switch off the computer, ran and opened the door to my mom's room crying while so scared. I leapt onto the bed, under the covers in one no motion, and would not come out. I started crying. My mom woke up instantly concerned. It was too hard to talk at the time, so all I managed to sleep in my hysterical cry was, "I'm scared. I want to sleep here." The next morning, my brother was playing the game, asking me why I left the computer on without pausing. I stared at him for a second, then just walked away. Once he got off, I took the disc out and put it away. You have no idea how much I wanted to smash it to pieces and put it in the trash, but I would have gotten in trouble for it. But then I remembered that how I screen capped the image. The computer was still on all night long, so it wouldn't have forgotten to copy the image. I opened up Microsoft Paint and clicked on paste. The image came up was horrifying. If I could remember correctly, it was a picture of Sonny. He was standing on the same spot where he died. It was closely zoomed in on the image. He had an obvious smile on his face that showed the rod-giving gingivitis-ridden teeth, ground with two sharp points. It looked like the Stephen King's It clown. That was it. I deleted the image and took the game out. To this day, it still haunts me. I still question what it was. As Stephen King says, eliminating the word how is how it really gets to you. Such an unexplainable event occurred and baffled me. Why would my speakers go off even though I muted them? Why did the heavy footsteps stop after I turned the computer off? Why did Sonny decide to mess with my head? Hell, why did it have to be after I tortured him for so long? I guess sometimes things can only go far until they snap. If you're ever wondering what happened after, there's something I really find strange. I logged onto the game about a couple of years ago. From what I can remember, all the houses in the game were wiped clean, as if I never built a house or did anything in there. It was a bit unsettling looking at open field, to which it was once a domain of houses I created. But I left. There was an eerie graveyard in the place of the house I used to torture the Sims. I never touched a game since. I never even bothered to get The Sims 2 when it came out. Well, my pretties, that was The Sims, Sonny, the Tragic Clown, a um, a Sims creepypasta. My final thoughts on this story. Um, this is actually not a bad Sims creepypasta. I definitely gotta really say, this one is not really the best Sims story in the world I have seen in creepypasta wise, but it definitely was an interesting story. I remember Creepypasta Jr. narrated this one, and I do believe I saw. Pardon me about that. I did believe I saw well, some ordinary gamers narrated this one a long time ago, but yeah, I definitely gotta say, while it is a good story, there are some parts that I want to make a point out, and some people have actually pointed this out, and I know one person actually pointed out. I mean, the one thing I could definitely say is that the story needs a couple things of what it can be actually worked on. You know, to be honest, it honestly needs a few things that it needs to work on. I mean, while the grammar was pretty good, there were a couple of times when there was a few couple run-on sentences. Like there was a couple more run-on sentences in each paragraph I was reading. So that honestly made the story difficult to read if I'm being honest, because while the grammar was good, but the punctuation marks need to be revised at parts cuz there were parts of the story that I honestly had a hard time reading. So, I mean, Google Docs can honestly help you with this kind of thing. You know, it's best you try using Google Docs. So there's definitely that. But I mean, it was still readable. It's just the run-on sentences need to be, fixed up. Maybe there's places that there could have been periods or commas, or they were just not there or whatever. Because that would made the story a bit difficult to read. And honestly, I had a bit of hard time reading it partway through because of how long the run on sentences were. I mean, the plot elements were interesting, but the plot twists were not that great. They honestly didn't work. That's what some people were saying, is that the plot twists didn't really work and could have been fixed up and patched up better. I mean, there would have been more ways and different ways they could patch up the plot twists to make it better. I mean, I could take it for the fact that this was an older story, so I'm willing to give it benefit of the doubt. This is an older story, so it's not like a brand new story or anything, but I just thought I'd put it out there. Um, the farther in the picture about that is, I mean, there's like a lot of those pictures of clowns, to be honest, and the more identifiable age than 12, yes, I mean, we've all been 12, but no one really remembers that age when it comes to a lot of stuff. And I mean, the ending of it wasn't really that satisfying, and it really could have been more work on the story. So it honestly was another thing I do want to point out, was the ending wasn't really that satisfying. And honestly, the ending could have been maybe improved a little, improved better and have like a better ending that makes more sense. I mean, I'm not trying to diss this story or anything. I'm just pointing out the criticisms of this story of, what needs to be improved on. But it was still a pretty good story. I still personally really enjoyed narrating it. It was a very fun story. Although, despite this some, errors of the story that I had to point out what was wrong with it, there was a few cliches in the story too, so I wanted to say right now, some of the cliches are, there, like, computer freezing and stuff. I mean that's been used in a lot of, gaming pastas, and it's kind of really hard to make a good gaming pasta without repeating, the same plot, cliches, etc. But it was still an interesting story. I personally thought it was a really good, interesting Sims pasta. Maybe not 100% perfect, but it definitely was not terrible. So, anyways, I will leave a link in the story and description down below. So, if any of you guys who are interested in going to check out the story, you are more than welcome to do so. Anyways, I'm going to sit here and just say right now that, yeah, to the author of the story, I don't know who you are, but if I find the author of this story, or if the author manages to find this story and comments and lets me know who he, she, they, or them are, I'll be sure to give them, I'll be sure to give them proper credit if they tell me who they are in the comments below, if they ever stumble across this one. It's hard to say, really. So, overall, not a bad story. Could it need some stuff that needs to improve on, like I stated before, but not a terrible story. So, there's definitely that. It was an interesting Sims pasta, but it could have been better. It's not terrible, but not perfect. So, I guess with that being said and that being the case, I'm going to sit here and say right now that this is just simply my own personal opinion. And if you disagree with me, that's fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions in regards to these stories. This is just my own personal thoughts. I give this story about. I'm going to give this one a 6.5 out of 10. I'm giving it a 6.5 out of 10 because while the story was pretty good, it did have, flaws with it that I stated. The ending wasn't really satisfying. The sentence structuring needs some work because there was some run on sentences. The plot of it was, I don't know what it is. A lot of people say it's a weak story, so I could really say there is a lot of issues. I mean, the plot twists executed poorly, which honestly was one of the major flaws. And it was cliched as well. Like, there was a couple cliches in the story, so there's definitely that. But despite the flaws of this story, this one was alright. I mean, not the best Sims pasta in the world, but not perfect. So that's why I give it a 6.5 out of 10. It's an okay story, but not terrible. So I guess with that being said and that being the case, yeah. What did you guys personally think of this creepypasta? Did you enjoy it? Did you not? Also, what would you have done personally to help make this story a lot better? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'm the Lion Queen. I want to thank you so much for watching today's video. And if you're new to my channel, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you're new. Ring the bell for notifications to when I upload, so that way you guys will not miss an upload. And as always, if you guys want to subscribe to my backup channel known as Miss Dark Shigo, link to that will be in the About page section of this channel. If you want to go follow me on DeviantArt as well as Twitter, links to those will be also in the About page section of my channel. So you guys can go and pretty much follow me on there if you like. So, yeah, if I'm missing anything about this story, let me know what it is in the comments below. Also, let me know what you guys think of this story. So, as always, please roll the outro because I'm out of here, and I'll be catching you all in the next video. So, peace out.